20 years ago to this day, this system hit the market. However, the story begins 2 years before that, in 1983. This was the year that Atari 2600 would remember forever. Up until that year, Atari was the console of choice, and people just couldn't get enough. However, in 1983, people were getting bored with old ideas constantly being redone. Couple that with the explosive popularity and then great loathing of E.T., after which people didn't want anything to do with video games anymore. Across the pond in Japan, however, the Nintendo Famicom, short for Family Computer, was destroying the market, just like the heydays of the Atari. Nintendo, seeing the great success that this system brought in Japan, wanted to bring it over to North America. This was a very risky move, however, since people were still pretty sore about Atari, and that's all anybody ever knew about video games. In order for people to buy into this, Nintendo advertised their product as a toy rather than a video game system, hence the name Nintendo Entertainment System instead of Nintendo Video Game System. In order to solidify their status as a toy rather than a video game system, there were a lot of interesting accessories such as Rob the Robot, the N.E.S Zapper, and then later the Power Pad. Knowing the skeptical society we have today, it's unclear to know if this strategy would have worked now. However, back then, people bought it, and quite literally. At the end of the NES's lifespan in North America, it boasted nearly 34 million copies sold, with a total of 61.91 million sold worldwide. Not only did this system sell astronomically, but it also brought many great advancements to video games, some of which you might not have ever known. Let's start by how the system hooked up into the TV. The Atari used a very archaic setup. This system had a cord that looked like this, which hooked into a box looking like this. The other side is where the antenna would hook up, both of which are supposed to stay screwed in permanently to the TV. However, the connection could loosen, meaning you would have to wiggle it around to get the picture. Or, if you were really fancy, you would have a box like this. Simply plug the wire from the Atari into this box. It automatically converts the signal to coaxial, as well as putting the picture on multiple TVs. Just flip the switch, and you're ready to go. Now let's look at how the NES hooks up. Notice the box looks very similar to the Atari one, but comes with a coaxial end instead of the twin lead end. Also notice there's no big switch in the middle. For the NES, it was automatic. Simply turn the NES on and the cable is off. Turn off the system and the cable goes back on again. This system is very efficient. However, it gets a little annoying when you have a really dusty game that flashes the screen. So basically you would have, say, orange or purple, and then that'd be mixed with whatever was on channel 3 or 4 at the time. Other than that, it's really amazing how much of an advance happened within only a lifespan of 2 years. There was only one problem, however. There were still TVs in 1985 that did not have a coaxial input. In fact, there were some TVs that still didn't even have color back then. If you were really desperate, you could still hook up to the box, just like the Atari did. You would just need a very specific wire to plug in there. With every TV today being made with at least one coaxial input, this system is no longer needed, unless you want to be considered the lord of the hipsters. For the typical consumer back then, however, there did exist a twin lead to coaxial adapter. This fixed the problem of hooking up the NES. There was also another hookup this NES had, one that's starting to age out right now, known as the AV cable. AV stands for audio visual. In this system, usually the video would be yellow and the audio would be red. However, if you had stereo, there would be another cord that would be white. These two cords would then plug into the back of the VTR. Yeah, back then it was called VTR. VHS came later on. From here, the picture would be substantially better than hooking in through the coaxial input. It also limited the amount of converters needed. Back then, a VTR would have a twin lead input and output, so if somebody still had that old style to their TV, it would still work. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, as well as got some interesting knowledge out of it. Until next time, keep having fun.